This particular podcast kind of will go through how to teach circuit training concepts or design circuit training activities for students in high school physical education classes. It has a slight general introduction into weight training, but a further podcast will go much more into detail in that in the future. So key concepts that we'll look at in this particular podcast are, number one, designing the particular circuits that will be part of the instruction, basic principles of design and sequencing and setting up the circuits to ensure equal balance in muscle development, equal balance in student conditioning, prevention of fatigue and overstress of certain muscle groups, and then some assessment strategies on how you would assess students in a circuit training unit. So basic sequence patterns in designing circuit training, some general overall concepts are, one of the first guidelines are, think about activities that have a similar time frame to completion. If you're designing a circuit, having some type of time at each station, repetitions at each station, make sure that the activities that you choose at each station require a similar amount of time and effort to complete, so that you don't have students standing and waiting, or you don't have students struggling to be able to complete the activities you want them to complete in the time frame allotted. Second thing is establishing a movement pattern. Are they moving clockwise around the gym, counterclockwise around the gym? Are you doing inside-outside circle where they have some things in the center, break to the outside, back to the middle? So choose a movement pattern and sequence that you want students to rotate in and clearly be able to describe and articulate that. The next thing is setting up your music in advance. Using a program such as Audacity or using a mobile app that sets up circuits is a big key factor to do in effective circuit training. You don't want to spend your time as a teacher working the stereo system versus being able to circulate, provide feedback, provide additional instruction to students, perform assessment, those type of things. And so taking the time to set up your music using some type of circuit training program or circuit training app will make it move much more effectively when you teach the circuit to students during class. The other key thing is to use program design principles from strength and conditioning and from effective weight training in setting up the order of exercises and setting up your circuits. And so let's look at some of those principles in detail. The first one is the concept of what's called push-pull. Push-pull is that sequencing your exercises to where one exercise works a muscle group, the exercise that follows works the opposite muscle group. For example, as you see on the diagrams to the left, the primary muscles on the upper part are muscles that are used in the push-up. So an example of a push-pull principle would be to perform the push-up, which works the muscles of the chest or pectoralis, works the triceps, followed by a bent over dumbbell row, which would work the lats, the lower back, the biceps, and the anterior part of the deltoid, so that you get a balance to where one exercise works the front of the body, one exercise works the back, one of them is a pushing activity, one of them is a pulling activity. That concept, that way you don't have to provide rest periods in between that because the muscle groups that are being worked are exactly the opposite. The second concept is upper body, lower body. In other words, sequencing your exercises to where you have an upper body exercise followed by a lower body exercise. It's very important with this concept, though, that you also think about that push-pull, because you don't strictly want to have upper body, lower body, but all of them be in the front of the body, which is what's called mirror syndrome. In other words, tend to work on the exercises for muscles that you see in the mirror, forget the ones in the back of the body, and that can lead to muscle imbalance and potential injury to various joints. So using upper and lower would be something like using a squat or a lunge followed by push-ups. That way you're doing an upper body, lower body exercise. The best circuits combine these two together. For example, you use the concept of push-pull and upper body, lower body together. So an example 4-station circuit might look like this. Push-up, which is a push activity that works the upper body, is followed by scooter hamstring curls. In other words, you're pulling yourself across the gym on a scooter using your heels. That would be a pull for the lower body. And so you've got an upper body, lower body rotation. You've got a push-pull rotation. Then you come back to bent row, which is the opposite of the push-up, gives you the pull for the upper body. Back to the walking lunge, which is the push part of the lower body, where you get the quadricep development, and it's a lower body activity. So you go upper body, lower body, upper body, lower body. And then you also get that push-pull combination in there. So the muscle groups that you work provides muscle balance for both the anterior and posterior portions of the body. The other examples of this is you can decrease the amount of rest time that's required between stations, because the muscle groups that are being worked are exact opposites, so you're not fatiguing one muscle group at multiple stations in a row. So when you're doing assessment for circuit training, some key things that you can do. First thing is having some kind of a card that students fill out as they go through the circuit, where they record the number of repetitions completed in the exercise, and then maybe you're doing this over a period of time, and they track. Can they do more push-ups in that time frame? Can they do more setups in that time frame? So they track their progress over the course of time. The other thing that you can do is maybe evaluate and do some type of formal assessment at one particular station. So the other stations are going on, the other exercises are going on, you do an assessment at that one station while others rotate. And then perhaps you change stations with that assessment on a daily basis, weekly basis, whatever you're assessing. The other type of one is that have students design a circuit using the push-pull upper body, lower body, and teach that circuit to class. And so maybe they go through and they work in a group where they design a circuit and they teach that circuit to the class, showing that they understand the push-pull principles, the upper-lower body principles, program design principles, and they teach that activity to the class as a whole. And so those are some different ideas that you can do for teaching circuit training in high school physical education.